As I'm not a fan of RFK Jr., I'm not going to claim he's wrong about everything. I'm not a fan of pharmaceutical ads on television, which are seen on almost every channel. Constantly. There's a medication for just about everything now, with lists of side effects that are a mile long. And in the commercials, the side effects are listed while showing really pleasant-looking things on the screen and pleasant-sounding audio to make it seem less bad. Well, people don't need to be constantly reminded of these medications, but if they watch TV, they're constantly inundated with it. RFK Jr. in the past has said he wants to put an end to pharmaceutical ads on television, and I agree with him wholeheartedly with that. But he's never went through with any of it. I'm not a fan of how often pharmaceutical drugs are prescribed to people unnecessarily. So many doctors out there have no problem putting people on like 12 medications. Not all doctors are that way. I've been pretty lucky myself. But there are quite a few doctors out there who give out medications like candy. It's particularly frustrating when medications are handed out to young children for no good reason. Sure, there are times where it's appropriate, but there are other times where it's not appropriate at all, and I'd say that's most of the time. A young boy with difficulty concentrating, even though it could be solved with different teaching methods, pump him full of drugs. Have some Ritalin, and later in your development have some stronger drugs, like Adderall. It upsets me that young boys, are often treated like defective girls because they don't concentrate and pay attention the same way as girls do. It has been shown that girls are better at that type of concentration than boys. But as I said, instead of adopting different teaching methods, let's just pump them full of drugs. And then boys get told that masculine traits are bad. Being assertive, competitive, decisive, having ambition, and being courageous are seen as toxic. And having feminine traits like being nurturing, vulnerable, sensitive, and gentle are seen as very healthy. So let's teach young boys that having masculine traits are bad and pump them full of drugs so they'll be more like unintelligent girls. And let's get rid of gifted programs because they're racist. And the demonization of masculine traits doesn't stop at public schools. It's pushed in work environments, in colleges, and in social media. There's a push just about everywhere for men to adopt feminine traits. And I don't mean a push for men to be Nelly Queens, to act like stereotypical feminine gay men. That would be ridiculous. I would never suggest that. I just mean to be extremely nurturing, vulnerable, sensitive, and gentle. And any reaction against it is seen as incel culture, as manosphere culture, as red-pilled, and most of all, toxic. As I said in another video, there are areas where the manosphere actually gets some things right. Men should be permitted to have masculine traits without getting demonized. Being assertive doesn't mean that someone is aggressive. Being confident doesn't mean someone is entitled. Being a good leader doesn't mean someone is authoritarian. Being decisive doesn't mean that someone is rash or engages in risky behavior. Having integrity doesn't mean someone is hiding their emotions. Having ambition doesn't mean someone is trying to win at all costs. Having courage doesn't mean someone is glorifying violence. Sure, if these traits aren't tempered, they can become something negative. But that goes with any trait. So even with feminine traits, someone can be over-nurturing, someone can be too vulnerable, someone can be too sensitive, and someone can be too gentle. But that's not taught anywhere. Feminine traits are pushed as being superior, and I don't think it's good for society as a whole. And what's kind of weird is that this push for feminine traits even goes into the way that people want the government to function. Over the past several decades, there has been more and more of a push for us to have a more feminine government. And it's typical for right-wingers to want to push for a more masculine government, and for the left to push for a more feminine government. As I suggested in my last video, the left can definitely be over-nurturing, too vulnerable, too sensitive, too gentle, and toxically empathetic to the point where anyone from any marginalized group is seen as being able to do no wrong. And when they actually do wrong, and bad things happen to them as a result, They're viewed as heroes, or at the very least, viewed as people who have been seriously wronged. It's why people like George Floyd and Jordan Neely are praised so much, rather than viewed for their bad traits, behaviors, and actions. It's why there's a pretty big handful of crazier leftists, or I don't know whether to call them leftists or activists or what, who are more angry at Robin Westman being misgendered than they are at children being killed. Yet at the next moment, declare that we should ban guns and get rid of the Second Amendment. I wish so many parts of the left, and some Democrats, would stop pushing for the notion of a feminine government at all costs, to stop pushing for empathy at all costs. Because as I said in my last video, there's a paradox of empathy, just like there's a paradox of tolerance. Just because someone is from a supposedly marginalized group shouldn't mean that we give them infinite chances. An infinite amount of support that we simply wouldn't give to non-marginalized groups. People in marginalized groups can do bad things, and we should be able to call those things out when they do. We should be able to call out problems in any culture. If there are genuinely toxic traits floating around, it shouldn't matter what identity group they come from. We should be able to call them out. Just saying.